Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. Joining me today is two of the finest men produced by this country in the last 25 years. Also, actually, Hamel's a bit older than 25, 27 years. It's Zach Jalab and Christopher Hamel. Welcome aboard, lads.
Every day above ground is a good day, Jalab. I do not fear ageing.
There we go.
Oh,
I mean,
bless.
Someone's been hit with the ageing stick a bit more than others on this panel, so I don't think you've got any complaints.
Hey, I'm getting there.
Strong
I'm getting
hairline.
there soon.
But let's move on. I don't know, there's no segue into that, but let's just go straight in. We'll talk about summer signings because Josh Davis has asked which summer signing has already made the biggest impact at their new club. But before we get into that, just a quick reminder to subscribe to Eurofootball Daily if you haven't already. Please do, and hit that notification bell so you'll never miss it when we release one of our Continental clubs. But obviously it's incredibly early days. There's only been 4 game weeks in France, 3 in Germany and Spain, and only 2 in Italy. But there have been some people, Chris, that have caught our eye across the continent, particularly one in Milan.
Yeah, I wanted to touch upon Inter Milan because we basically want someone to challenge Juventus for the Serie A crown. And they've made quite a few new signings. Obviously, Conte's coming to the club, so that's going to bridge the quality gap between the Juventus and the Inter Milan squad somewhat, because his managerial ability is better than Spalletti's, albeit very different. And Romelu Lukaku was their big money signing, wasn't he? And Conte finally got his man after pursuing Lukaku beforehand as well. £74 million on a 5-year deal. Not exactly a disastrous spell at Manchester United. I think some people, some revisionists, are trying to kind of blight his period at the club, despite scoring 42 goals in 96 games for the club. Admittedly, only made 22 starts in 18-19. Not great. I think that was 6 fewer than Ashley Young and 2 fewer than Chris Smalling. I think was still, their second top goal scorer?
I think so, yeah,
after Paul Pogba. So not disastrous, but pretty underwhelming from the Belgian. And personally, I'd like to see him do well. I like to see him do well because every time he's interviewed, if that's a Players Tribune article or post-match or during the game, he seems like quite a classy guy, very intelligent, speaks multiple languages, fascinated by his story. And his story at Milan has kicked off exceedingly well. 2 goals in 2 games. Admittedly, one of those was a penalty against Cagliari. I can't say I have to say Cagliari.
But
I have to say it how it's
we've been
spelled.
told it's wrong.
Cagliari.
It's not easy.
Sounds like an octopus.
Anyway, let's move on from that, because despite Gary Neville saying he was overweight when he left Manchester United, he's looked pretty sharp so far. Now, some of his play has concerned me. Only 1.5 shots per game. Not fantastic if you want to score 20 goals across the course of a season. He does seem to be dropping deeper and deeper. Against Lecce, he only had 1 shot, scored 1 goal. Lautaro Martinez, I think, had 8 or 9 shots in that game. Of course, they've just been promoted, haven't they? So you're expecting a striker of his calibre to get, 4 or 5 shots off and look a little bit more dangerous than he did. He was sacrificing some of his game by dropping deep, linking up the play, blitzing the fullback, by the way. But I don't think it's worth him dropping deep because his link-up play isn't that good or crucial to Inter Milan progressing the ball. So I'd like to see him in the box a little bit more, just like the end of his tenure at Manchester United. Despite that, 3 key passes, very good, 1 dribble, and his expected goals is 0.93, but figures slightly skewed by the fact, he took that penalty. And Inter Milan as a whole have actually been very good so far. So second to Bologna, who unexpected points that is, who've started the season very well, haven't they? Although they have played, like I said, a newly promoted side and a side who finished 15th last campaign. Lautaro Martinez is another one we need to touch upon. Not a new signing, but 6.3 shots per game, 1.2 key passes, 1.2 dribbles, and an expected goals and assists, of 0.65 per game, which is ruthless. And we said from the off that he's a player who's probably been a little bit underestimated so far in his Inter Milan career, and he deserves that starting berth next to Romelu Lukaku, and they could be a really destructive partnership this campaign. And Stefano Sensi, who you touched upon a couple of times towards the end of last campaign because of some of his ridiculous numbers, creative numbers from central midfield, has really transported that form from Sassuolo to Inter Milan, hasn't he? So 2 games, 1 goal, 1.7 tackles and interceptions. Not great, but 3.9 shots and 2.2 key passes. Now, he does take set pieces, he does take corners, which obviously inflates that number somewhat, but he is an attacking powerhouse. And they host Udinese this weekend, who kind of sit 14th after a lacklustre start. So I don't expect them to run riot, but I expect that to be a comfortable victory again, and for those aforementioned players to kind of pad out their numbers even more. Let's just hope this form continues, because the last 6 or 7 Serie A's, I mean, well, in the absence of Sarri, let's say, especially, have been fairly dull, haven't they?
Yeah, I didn't particularly enjoy last year at all. I didn't think Juventus were at their sort of best of a few years before that, and then Napoli looked a bit shaky in parts last year, so it'd be great to have Inter Milan back and sort of competing at the top end of the table. I've always had a slight soft spot for them, and they'll obviously still need to reintroduce lots of their, like Godin hasn't played yet. I don't think they still haven't had their sort of first choice back 5, as it were. But Barella's looked really good in midfield as well. Kondrava scored an awesome goal against Lecce as well, rolling back the years. Although wouldn't expect that on too regular basis.
What about that kit as well?
Oh, such a good
away
kit.
I'm furious that Joe Thomason's got to it first.
It's banging. It's a very, very good kit.
He had an Instagram photo up that day as well.
Yeah, I took it as well.
It's a very nice kit. But, Zach, let's talk about someone on the other end of the experience, sort of end, as it were. Because Romelu Lukaku, everyone knows we can do, everyone knows we can bring to the table. But another player went to a big club this year for another, huge sum of money. And it's a pretty solid start for him as well.
Yeah, he's done very good. It's João Felix, who moved to Atletico Madrid for 126 million euros, having only really played essentially half a season in Liga NOS. But I mean, it was a mental half season. He scored 15 goals and got a bunch of assists as well, and made essentially Benfica win the league. I remember we spoke about him when he kind of broke out in kind of like January time, and so this is someone who looks very, very good. He was taking some ridiculous numbers of like 3 shots per game in Liga NOS. But I think the issue that we've always had with Liga NOS is that you can never tell whether they're going to be good or not in another league. But it looks like João Felix is going to be smashing it in Spain. He's played 3 games so far in the league and got a goal and an assist. And he's only taking 1.1 shot per game. However, I think he's playing a bit more of a different position to how he was at Benfica. Whilst at Benfica, he's kind of playing more second striker. At Atletico Madrid, he's played off of more kind of like on the wings with Lemar on the other side and playing kind of off Diego Costa. But he's also creating chances of 0.4 key passes, and he's completing 1.5 dribbles a game with a 44% success rate. So hopefully you would look for that to kind of increase over time in the season. And I guess as a 19-year-old as well, to come into a tough league, one of the best in the world, for a club that's challenging for the title with such a big price tag. I think those figures at the moment aren't too bad, and in general Atletico Madrid haven't done too bad. Maybe they can look to improve, but we've never really seen Atletico Madrid smash teams unlike they did against Real Madrid in pre-season. They've won 1-0 against Getafe, they've beat Leganés 1-0 and beat Eibar 3-2 with a 90th minute goal. So I kind of think we may have underestimated him a little bit. I think we put in one of our XIs, which I wrote myself, saying that give him time, he might actually blow this season. But I think come January, he'll have a solid number. I think they've still got Morata to come back as well. But they've also got some other players at Atletico Madrid that are killing it. Kieran Trippier moved, and we've kind of like, what was that move for? But he's making 4 tackles and interceptions per game and getting a key pass per match. And also it's Thomas Partey, who's as well killing it. Rodri left in midfield, and he slotted in perfectly, making 4.6 tackles and interceptions per game, taking 0.7 shots a game and completing 2.6 dribbles. So he's really helping that squad. I think Atletico Madrid were a bit of a weird one this year because we didn't really know what to expect from them.
So many new
signings, so many players left. Godin left, and Diego Simeone, we look at him like he's going to be able to do it again, but how well will he do it? Especially kind of with Real Madrid last season dropping off, Barcelona technically dropping off as well.
Well, no one expected them to be 5 points ahead of Barcelona at this point, whilst taking 6 shots a game. They're just having no shots whatsoever, but really, really high quality shots. It's like they're walking everything in. So we don't expect that to continue. in order to kind of challenge for the title, they do need to be generating more chances.
Yeah, definitely.
Because some of the expected goals and assists from players like João Felix, like Morata, is pretty frightening at the moment, if not unsustainable.
Yeah, I think there's only one or two players who are providing over a chance a game, which is pretty worrying.
But it's not unsurprising either, though. I guess like they had Antoine Griezmann, who is a shot monster and a creative beast.
Exactly.
So I guess João Felix is coming straight away and fit that mould. Like he's got to have a bit of time, but come January,
I think we were maybe a little bit harsh on him, but also he's the 5th most expensive player of all time. Although it's being paid in instalments. I actually read this morning that it was actually only 30 million up front, but it's still going to be that's a lot of money over 5 to 4 years.
It's the case of most clubs, isn't it? Imagine paying 120 million up front.
Can't happen.
You'd be done on financial fair play for the next 3 years.
Also, complete change of style. He's going for a club that completely dominated possession and space. To Atletico Madrid, who often sort of play on the counter attack. Completely different system. I think he's playing a bit deeper than he did at Benfica, as Zach said. So
their midfielders have always been very, very press resistant, though, haven't they? Because when they deploy that deep block, they need to break from it, and that's why Griezmann was always a great link man to the forward, because he would drop deeper. Hopefully, João Felix can do that for Morata. They've got to be adept at getting the ball out of tricky positions in midfield.
Diego Costa, I don't know how last year
Rebirth.
I thought Diego Costa was dead.
He was dead.
That was it.
He
wasn't coming back.
Practically playing
and then he's Jesus Christ it. He's out and he's back and he's killing it.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm still a bit sceptical about how that's going to do long term, but he did play very well in that game against Real Madrid and has looked good, and I think he started that game against Eibar as well. But yeah, that leads us on quite nicely to our third suggestion, which is Antoine Griezmann, because I think, considering the injuries they've had at the start of the year, and Suarez is coming back for this weekend against Valencia, supposedly, Messi's still out, there's been a hell of a lot of pressure on Antoine Griezmann to hit the ground running, and he started pretty badly against Athletic Bilbao. I think it was 1 shot, 1 dribble, no key passes. But then, in the game since, although Barcelona have looked shaky, I think Griezmann's looked exceptional, really. That game against Real Betis, I think it was it 2 goals and an assist? Just absolutely awesome display. He did this amazing assist to Vidal, who then took it first time. I was watching the highlights of that again this morning, and he was just picking up such good pockets of space. One of his finishes was so sort of Messi-esque, and I think he said afterwards, I've been learning off the best in training, which is the classic Barcelona flirt.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. Good PR.
Exactly. But, big loss to Atleti. Obviously, was their top scorer for 5 years, scored over 130 goals there. And I think I would have been a bigger fan of the signing if it was made 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But now, I think he's going to be fantastic for 2 years. But I just think it was maybe a little bit short term, and they could have potentially gone for a younger option, someone tried really hard to get a Gabriel Jesus or as a backup to Suarez, or a Timo Werner or someone like that. Someone really up and coming who would potentially have 8 to 10 years, whereas you'd expect Griezmann to maybe have 3 or 4. And I think he was really signed with the Champions League in mind, because Suarez, although he's still such an incredible player and he can sort of destroy domestic teams on a regular basis, his Champions League stats in the last few years have actually been pretty poor. I think it's 5 goals in his last 30 Champions League games, whereas Griezmann's got something like 18 goal involvements and about 26.
I'm sure Barcelona operate on kind of on a 4, 5, 6 year basis. I completely agree that it would have been really nice to see them go for a young player who is underused, like Gabriel Jesus. I mean, it'd take an absolute mammoth bid to get him out of City, but they do operate on a 1 to 2 year basis, don't they? Because they have to win everything that season, and they've had the luxury of a player who is always going to score 30 goals season on season. And they've added youth to their ranks and already kind of almost worked him out of the squad. I'm talking about Ousmane Dembele, who is well capable of scoring 15 to 20 goals, and now the fans are sort of hounding him out of the club. So
you wonder what his sort of mental state's like when he's being included on deadline day, effectively, for that Neymar deal, with Rakitic. I think it was Todibo as well. But also,
Valverde let that happen with Rakitic. He
loves Rakitic.
But he's not really played this year, has he?
Rakitic has been on the bench, I think, mainly. I think Vidal's played more, and Frankie de Jong's actually started really well, alongside of Busquets, who's looked very dodgy defensively, at least. I think Busquets is very much, this might be his last 18 months at the top level.
Some of the youth's been playing as well, though, right?
Exactly, yeah. Carlos Perez has played exceptionally well. I think it's, I've got it down here, 1 goal, 2 assists. Looks like he's sort of ready to make more of an impact throughout the season. But you just think when Messi comes back, Suarez comes back, Dembele comes back into the fold, how many opportunities are you really going to get at Barcelona, which is slightly worrying.
I suppose you can only do the best with the time you've been given, and because those players are injured, I mean, he's been taking, over 2 shots, generating over 2 key passes. He has been really productive on that kind of right-hand side. And I suppose maybe might make him, more buoyant that Rafinha was let go on deadline day to Celta Vigo. Obviously, Valverde backing him over Rafinha, and Rafinha got a decent amount of minutes, I guess.
Yeah, he did.
As a rotation option, so he might become the new Rafinha.
Played some big games last year, Rafinha, as well. I think he played El Clasico on the right-hand side as well when there was a few injuries. So Barcelona started quite poorly, 5 points behind Atleti, and unless they get it sort of together in the next month or so, if that goes to a 10-point gap potentially, that's going to be really tough to, drag back.
I'd love Atleti to win the league this year.
It would be exciting, wouldn't it? Although I don't. There's no club in world football that I least like to support than Atletico Madrid.
Really?
Whenever I watch them, I'm just
boring.
Because they're anti-football.
just because I love their footballers, but I think they could just be so much more expressive.
But they're playing to win, aren't they? They're playing more of the, instead of like, let's play really, really nice football, let's just play to win.
Did you not
Yeah.
appreciate the
only thing.
fine art of that they
Defensively, they are incredible.
It's slightly off topic, but who would be your worst club to support? I'm saying Atletico Madrid. I've put you on the spot there. So
maybe PSG or Real Madrid. Like, I actually have a bit of a soft spot for Barcelona, and I know we get accused of being pro-Barcelona despite being highly critical of like their transfer dealings, Valverde at times, the fan base. Because if you're a purist, you obviously love Johan Cruyff, but kind of state-owned clubs. I like Manchester City because of Guardiola. When Guardiola goes, do I want to see them succeed? Probably not.
fair.
Gutted kid.
I'm really not too
and
sure.
James.
United.
I spoke long enough for you to
United.
come up with an answer there.
United.
Yeah.
Fair. Yeah, that's the antithesis of most people's tastes. But there's also been some other players that have shined around Europe. We'll briefly touch on them. Hirving Lozano came on against Juventus, played exceptionally well, got a goal on his debut. And he actually went for a lot of money in the end. I think it was over 40 million euros. So a lot of pressure on him to perform. And he tends to play off the left, but can play on the right as well. So it'll be interesting to see how Ancelotti
really
sort
good
of
front
uses his front line now.
Mertens, Callahan, Insigne, and Milic, and now.
Exactly, yeah. There's so many options in there, so it's going to be fascinating. But has anyone else sort of caught your eye, guys, new signings-wise?
Do you want me to jump in?
Yeah, you jump in, I'm just thinking.
I mentioned a couple of these players on Sunday Vibes, so I'll try and move away from them. But Nabil Fekir started life really well at Real Betis, as we thought he would, and he's proved to kind of be worth the risk, let's say, despite playing a lot of football before this. Kind of unfairly has a reputation for being a player who's fastly deteriorating. He started life well, which was important for them, because obviously parted ways with Setien. They sold, Fabian Ruiz was like 18 months ago now, wasn't it, to Napoli. But yeah, they've got the kind of core of a really good squad. They sold Junior Firpo, that's the player I was looking for. Thiago Mendes has started life really well at Lille.
Yeah, Lyon.
Lyon, joining from Lille. And he was kind of a defensive midfielder, wasn't he? Not been in European football all that long.
No.
I think only a couple of years beforehand at Lille, joined from a Brazilian side. And he was obviously brought in to kind of shore up the base of that midfield under Silvinho, who obviously is his fellow countryman. So he backed him straight away. And I like this Lyon side. They seem a lot more well balanced. Toussaint, Aouar, Thiago Mendes in that midfield complement each other really well. And
Depay's looks electric.
Depay's killing it. Yeah.
Depay, of course, and Moussa Dembele looks like he's probably going to go to a huge club in like less than a year.
Does Bertrand Traoré still play for them?
Bertrand Traoré, yeah.
Still plays for Lyon?
Yeah.
I know that Cornet,
Max Cornet as well.
plays on the
go.
right. Bertrand Traoré, I thought he might have gone out alone.
I saw this week, Hamill, that Lyon might look at Odsonne Edouard.
Yeah, quality. What, as a replacement for Moussa Dembele?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Just become Lyon's feeder club now. Great. I mean, I actually think...
Do you think he's that level?
I think Moussa Dembele is a better finisher, but Odsonne Edouard has a better all-round game in that you could probably play Odsonne Edouard on the left, cutting in. Whereas, Moussa Dembele is very good at running with the ball. He's a powerful guy. But Odsonne Edouard, probably a better link-up man, a little bit of a better passer, but Moussa Dembele is a ruthless finisher. So I actually think they could play in the same team. Well, they did play in the same team for a little while, didn't they? But a different sort of player. But yeah, Odsonne Edouard probably be playing up front with Kylian Mbappe or Moussa Dembele for France in about 2 or 3 years' time.
The French depth is just ridiculous. It just goes on and on.
And Celtic will be a distant memory.
Yeah. Quick couple of shouts out in the bully as well. Mats Hummels has actually started really well. Sort of controlling at the back. I think he's averaging over 90% of his passes.
I liked that signing, and me and Van Straten went at it hammer
See,
and
I
tongs.
didn't.
Yeah,
And he was like, he should have signed someone under 25, because if you're over 25, you're dead. You're useless.
Well, I didn't because of the fact that they had so
Diallo.
many. Diallo. But then
Yeah.
they sold Diallo, and I was like, okay, actually makes.
I didn't like the move, but I think he'll still be good this year or next year, potentially. But I thought it was a bit potentially limiting on their future as well. I was kind of on Pato's side, to be honest. But Torgan Hazard as well. He's only played 2 games for Dortmund so far. He's averaging close to 4 key passes, which was, I think he's doing 3.5 at the moment. And the best was last year was James Rodriguez on 4 in the bully. So right up there, instantly hitting the ground, running. Who else have we got down here?
Jadon Sancho.
Victor Osimhen, who I know very little about, but he's joined Lille.
I actually talked about him on Sunday.
Did
Vibes.
you?
Yeah, he's just from Belgian side, Charleroi.
Charleroi, yeah.
Charleroi.
Charlemagne.
Charlemagne. Good song. Good song, that. Who was that? Anyway, let's not get sidetracked. I think he's taken like 4 shots a game, and they're all, if not 3/4, maybe even more, from inside the box. And some of his finishes have been devastating.
Yeah,
like back turn to goal, defender behind him, goalkeeper in a decent position, just finding corners. He's running hot.
Fair. Well, one to watch, potentially, Piontek of this year. But yeah, was at Wolfsburg before that, and I think he played about 14 games, didn't get a goal. So
Then he got bloody malaria.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah, so
Jesus.
comeback.
Oh, I'm on Victor Osimhen's side, big time. Keep that going. And yeah, we talked about Fekir, we talked about Hirving Lozano. Zach, any of your Chelsea signings going well at the moment?
Pulisic is doing all right.
Yeah,
I'll have
he
you
is
know.
doing well.
Kovacic has been pretty good.
All right.
True.
Yeah, so you sharp.
right.
How's Sunderland doing, Deegs?
We've got a big game against Accrington
Oh,
Stanley
wow.
this weekend.
Can't wait for 3,000
And
to watch
the
that.
takeover is expected to go through early next week.
Oh
But I have
my
been
god,
saying
this
that for a couple of
takeover has
weeks.
been going on. This takeover's been going longer than Newcastle.
Will be one of the richest clubs in the land, and it'll be very exciting. But let's not, bore the Continental Club fans with chat of Sunderland. That was our roundup of summer signings so far. We've got a big match preview to get on to next. Let's get stuck into it. As I said before, it is a big match that we're previewing this weekend. It's RB Leipzig versus Bayern Munich, which is taking place on Saturday, at 5:30 p.m. It's first versus second. It's Nagelsmann's arguably his first test of his RB Leipzig tenure. His side playing fantastically well. 3 from 3, they've scored 9, conceded just 2, but they're coming up against a Bayern Munich side that have recovered from that Mainz 2-2 draw in their opening game to hit 9 goals in their last 2 games. So we are expecting a thriller. Christopher Hamel,
Bloody fireworks.
RB Leipzig are the hosts.
They are. And a lot of people saying yes, they have started the season well, but they've smashed, the likes of Union Berlin, who have just come up, and then Union Berlin went and beat Dortmund 3-1 at home. So let's not take anything away from the start that they've made, particular players like Timo Werner, who we've been tooting his horn for quite some time, haven't we? 5 goals in 3 games, an expected goals and assist return of 1.77. The only striker with a higher ratio than that, I think, is Robert Lewandowski. So absolutely astronomical figures from him. I think he's taking around 4.5 shots per game as well. He signed that contract extension, although I think within that contract extension is a pretty cheap get-out clause of around 30 million euros. So looking forward to seeing him play for Bayern in a year's time after RB Leipzig potentially dethrone them. And that is a massive potential at the moment. I do think Nagelsmann's probably a better manager than Kovac, but Kovac has a better squad. So, it's two really well-armed German football teams competing for the Bundesliga this campaign. And they had a pretty modest summer, didn't they? Only spent 37 million euros. They brought in some really good talent, particularly in Kunku, who I'm a massive fan of. Let Bruma go to PSV and let Augustin go out on loan to Monaco, which was odd.
He's had it rough
because
Augustin.
he was very useful in the limited minutes he was given. He always had a very, very decent goal and assist return compared to the minutes he was actually given on the pitch. But I suppose they do have Poulsen, they do have Timo Werner, they do have Sabitzer is bloody killing it on that sort of right-hand side. He often kind of comes in a little bit more centrally, a bit of a playmaker, isn't he? A lot of key passes for him this term. So Nordi Mukiele's playing well. I do think this could be a bit of a season-defining game very, very early on, particularly as it's at home. So I think Kovac will be happy to escape with a draw here. But RB Leipzig they've been a little bit not lax or porous, but loose at the back, let's say.
More so than last year, I think I agree with that.
They had the second best defence in the Bundesliga last year after Bayern Munich, despite conceding less goals, according to kind of expected goals. They conceded a really low quality shot in general under Ralf Rangnick. But it's like Inter Milan, isn't it? There's finally a competitor, or someone we hope is an able competitor. So I actually hope they smash Bayern up.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to see particularly like the fullbacks. I think Klosterman and Helsingborg playing so well, getting up and bombing up and down. It's going to be a fascinating battle. And seeing Forsberg come back to full form is really exciting as well after a sort of down last 18 months or so. So that's really exciting as well. But Zach, Bayern are in good form as well.
They are. They have. They've recovered from, as we said, their draw on their first game of the season. And I mean, if RB Leipzig's defence are struggling now, it's probably not the best time to play Bayern Munich when they're taking 18 shots per game. And Lewandowski's taking 5 of them. The man has started this season on fire. He's played, I think, 9 full seasons of 40 or more games, which is mental. And he's turning 31 and is still killing it. 6 goals in 3 games, which is just mental. Other players who've done really well, so like Benjamin Pavard's come into the squad. He's got a goal and assist.
He's got a goal and assist from centre half,
which is ridiculous. Which made me, when I first saw that, I was like, he must be playing right back.
Yeah, probably.
But apparently not. Him and Sula doing very well. The only kind of maybe a bit of shoddy play at the moment is Neuer. Last season he didn't have his best season. This season still not looking quite at it. I mean, he's still a very good goalkeeper, but not to the world-class standard he was, say, 2 or 3 years ago.
I'm willing to entertain the idea that he might be done as an elite goalkeeper.
Yes, I would now say he's not in the top 5 in the world.
No, definitely.
Yeah,
from there, I mean, Ter Stegen's probably up there. De Gea as well. But yeah, I just see Bayern they've got such a good squad, and although yes, they need another forward, okay, yes, they could add a little bit more youth in other positions, I just don't see them kind of failing this season as much as we would like them to. I mean, they've brought in Coutinho, who's going to add some mad creative numbers. They've got Joshua Kimmich, who's arguably one of the best right backs in the world. And in each position,
back to full fitness.
Exactly. And I just feel like in each position they've got someone who could contend for being the best in that position in the world.
If they had got Sane, I think it
might have been
too much.
Yeah, I think they'd be Champions League favourites
for Salzburg.
Yeah.
That would be disgusting.
But they didn't, so it's all still to play for.
Yeah, and it's great to see Kingsley Coman come back to full form as well.
Yeah.
He's had a couple of cracking good games for France. I was watching, along with Jonathan Koné as well. Who plays for Lille, who's playing really well for France, but that's a separate matter entirely. But yeah, I mean, Lewandowski can just do it all at the moment. He's just taking everything he hits at the moment is going in. Free kicks, the works.
I mean, obviously he's never fully relied on his pace, and he's not necessarily been slow, but he's not been very quick either. So he's okay in that department, no matter how old he gets. But it's like each year we say, okay, Bayern need to bring in another striker in case Lewandowski gets injured. Lewandowski doesn't get injured, and then he bangs in like 30 plus goals.
Have you seen it?
He's ridiculous.
He's just like that guy on Terminator. Is it Terminator 2?
No idea.
The police.
I fell asleep in Terminator.
Oh, you too?
I've never watched Terminator.
I fell asleep.
Where's Pat when I'm talking to him?
Wow.
Pep Guardiola said he was the best trainer he's ever worked with, Robert Lewandowski.
That doesn't surprise me.
And Florentino Perez, I thought was quite interesting yesterday. He said that sometimes you come up against a club that just don't want to sell, and he was actually talking about Pogba. And he said that they tried for years to sign Lewandowski. He was like, we just couldn't get him out. At Bayern, like he doesn't have a clause, and Bayern didn't want to sell.
Well, Robert, he said something a bit harsh this week though. He was like, "Oh, this is the first. Bayern is the only top club I've ever played for." Like essentially dissing.
Don't really like that.
Well.
It's very Koscielny-esque, isn't it? Yeah, not such a fan of that. But it'll be tough ask for.
I'm kind of into it.
It'll be a tough ask for RB Leipzig. They've only won 1 of their 6 meetings with Bayern, but they're a different proposition this campaign. We're hoping for a throwback to May 2017 when it was a 5-4 win for Bayern. Leipzig were 4-2 up, and Bayern scored 3 goals in the last 10 minutes.
This game is either going that way or a 1-0 win.
Wait, it was a 0-0 draw last year.
If Bayern win, then Continental Club will be significantly less interesting for the rest of the season.
Fair.
Because we'll just be like, yeah, Bayern have won the Bundesliga again.
Yeah.
I do think the margins are going to be that small.
But there are, I mean, drawing to minds in on their first home game does show they have weaknesses. They do have things to improve.
Well, expected goals in that game suggested it was very much quite a fluke
lucky
result.
Yeah.
But guys, we need a prediction. Zachary Jalab.
The purist in me wants to say RB Leipzig 3-2, but the reality is going to be Bayern Munich 4-2.
Okay.
Oh God, quite,
It's quite-
quite the swing there. For the future of German football on this channel, RB Leipzig are going to win 3-1.
Ooh, I am going to go with the 2-2 draw. Really entertaining game though. Cannot wait for this one. We're not actually going to do quickfire questions for this week because we've rambled on for ages and ages, but thank you very much for submitting them. Please respond to my tweet next week. I tend to send it out on a Wednesday. Thank you so much for the people that regularly do. It doesn't go unnoticed. Thank you very much for watching. Let us know about your thoughts about what we said in the comments below. And what should they go and do now?
Squad goals. You can check Doogie, or Doog, as he likes to call himself, out on the wing. The only man I've seen play video games cross-legged.
It's a good technique.
It is quite impressive.
So you made it a second appearance, did you?
Well, it was last minute call up, yeah. I thought I'd never be called up again after my first game, but
Well, still the case with me.
wait, that's what happens if you get sent off.
A bit awkward this, isn't it? Really. You should go and download our podcast, by the way, because we just hit 1 million all-time listens on the Extra Time podcast. So if you've not tuned into that yet, get stuck in. There's plenty of kind of European football on there. So football for every taste.
Nice. And go check out We Need to Talk. Joe's talking FIFA. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Bye.